Stellar Fundraising Auctions presents Black Tie and Tails. Brought to you by our partner Sojourn Ventures, featuring your co-hosts Greg Quiroga and Devon Bell. Welcome to Black Tie and Tails, where we share tales of triumph and tragedy from behind the scenes in the wonderful world of fundraising auctions. I'm Greg Quiroga, half of your co-hosting team. As always, I'm joined by co-host Devon Bell.
Hello, all.
And what's the first thing you think of when somebody says to you, fundraising auction?
Oh yeah, where are you going to do that?
Yeah, like and for me, like what usually comes to mind is a ballroom in a hotel somewhere.
Oh yeah, with all set up for catering.
Yeah, all set up for catering. Like you know, and there are not all hotel ballrooms are equal, but the reality is not all fundraising auctions take place in ballrooms. So this episode's theme is location. And look, if you do your event in a ballroom, more power to you. You've done great events in ballrooms, raised millions of dollars in ballrooms, and there are some amazing hotel ballrooms in San Francisco and beyond with incredible catering staff and whatnot, but some of the most memorable events that I've done weren't in a ballroom.
Yeah, you know, in an earlier episode, we talked about decor, and how that can do so much for the vibe, for the theme, and location is very much like that. You said it perfectly. We got nothing against hotel ballrooms. In fact, in many ways, they're logistically easier because all the space is set up for specifically what you're about to do.
There's a kitchen.
Yeah, right. It's right. And, it's all the carpet that you don't slip on. And it just, there's a lot that's good there. But when you have something that takes a chance with location, it's a real opportunity to do something special and different and really enhance the efficacy of your event.
And probably the most unique location I've ever done an event at was for Taste of Vail, which is in Vail, Colorado, quite obviously. And they have a big grand tasting and auction on Saturday night that takes place in, the ballroom or whatever. It's but leading up to it, they would have a series of wine dinners, and each wine dinner would have a small auction. So technically, I did an auction where we had to ride the Eagle Bond gondola. And if you're familiar with Vail, you know what the Eagle Bond gondola is and where it's headed, because it heads up to the backcountry lodge, right? I mean, the backcountry bowl that goes down. But if you're not, just picture a gondola. Takes you to the top of the mountain. And in April, when we were there doing it, there's snow on the ground. Right? The first year I went to Vail to do Taste of Vail, it dumped 3 feet of snow as we were driving up from Denver to Vail. Thank goodness we used Colorado Mountain Express, which is an all-wheel drive transport company that I thought they were sending a car. They put us in a van with other people, and I was all like, and then we got on the road and the driver's like, everybody be strapped in, and we're hitting this blizzard in this all-wheel drive van, and I was like, oh, thank goodness for this guy.
Right.
But so you ride the gondola, you get on the gondola, you go up to the top of the mountain to the Eagle Bond Lodge. You get out, you shuffle across the lodge because, at this point, you're not wearing snow boots, right? You're going to a wine dinner. You shuffle across and you climb into a snowcat. Mm-hmm. And it's one of those snowcats designed to haul like people, like a group of people. It's not just it's not ski patrol or the snowmakers snowcat. Like this is designed to haul like 8 people at a time in the snowcat. And the snowcat took us down through the bowl to this game lodge that's only accessible by skis or snowcat. And it's this incredible backcountry bowl overlooking the backside of the Vail Resort. So you don't see any homes, you don't see any businesses, it's just all nature stretching out, snow-covered, beautiful Rocky Mountain nature stretching away into the distance. And they've built there's this huge, beautiful, big, not monstrous, there's a decent sized lodge. It has room for like 70 something people at 6 to 10 tops, and a few vintners and a chef. And we do this wine dinner, and midway through, we stopped. I sold 5 auction lots, and then we kept going.
Talk about setting the scene like writ large.
Yeah. I mean, just unforgettable. And when it comes to the location for, I mean, auction or wine dinner or anything, that takes the cake as the most unique location I've done lots of wine dinners that didn't have auctions, right? But it was just an incredibly, and it isn't to say that every location has to be so mind-blowing, but if you have the opportunity to do something and it fits in the it fits within the culture of the event, right? Like that's truly a taste of Vail. Yeah. Right. Like I didn't ski or snowboard that year. Nobody in my family did, but we got to ride a gondola. We got to ride a snowcat. We got to go to the backcountry. We got to see incredible views that otherwise we would only see if we'd been on skis. Yeah.
It's like you did Vail. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's the Vail experience.
And the food, what's funny is I'm riffing all this. Like, I'm pretty sure the food was amazing. Right? Like, like I remember being like, wow. And what, like, who is this Michelin starred chef doing this? Oh, we said there was going to come a knock and there it is. I don't even remember. Michelin
starred chef. The food was great as far as you can remember.
Food is great as far as I remember. Yeah, whatever. Black Tie and Tails is
Vail, snow, blah, blah, blah.
It was as Vail an experience as we could get, right?
Riding on a snowcat, it's like the magic bus with tank treads.
The snowcat, I gotta say, like back when my snowboarding days, I had always wanted to do one of the snowcat or heli adventures, and unfortunately, my back revealed itself to not be worthy of snowboarding into my 40s long before that. But it was quite the adventure, and our son Ryder was 18 months old at the time. Right. He was just a baby. So, I mean, for him, that was like, there's something genetic that kicks in. My wife was like, I'm not going to like push him towards one thing or the other. And he was like, nah, dude, trucks. Like, I am into trucks. It's just that genetically it kicked in at a certain point. And he was like, wow, this was awesome.
It's like the world's biggest truck, man.
Right.
That thing is huge. One of my coworkers, her daughter, it's 30 or something. Okay. And she went on a snowmobile adventure.
Sweet.
Up in Tahoe. Well, let's finish the story.
Okay.
And so she had never ridden a snowmobile before, and she was following the guy, the guide guy. Mm-hmm. And he took a turn, and she didn't take that turn, and she went down a 20-foot embankment, and the thing landed on top of her and broke 2 vertebrae. She broke 2 vertebrae, and I was like, note to self about riding a snowmobile. It's a motorcycle, but on snow.
Follow the guide.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry for your niece.
Yeah, her daughter, my coworker's daughter. Yeah.
Oh God, sorry for your
daughter. But it sounds like that she just
your work niece.
She just broke the bones, and so 6 weeks in a brace, and then she's fine.
Oh, that's great.
So when it's anything spinal cord, that's like getting off easy, right? That's, things could have been worse.
And thank goodness it was also obvious that you need, like, those bones are broken. Like, I wish I had known that I had broken my back when I broke my back. Yeah. Because then I would have gotten the cast and done everything else. And
we circled around your topics. Yeah. Your back revealed itself.
Yeah. My back did reveal itself. So we were talking about locations, and you had mentioned one, and I think I will wait until you talk more about it. But you had mentioned one that was kind of like the prime synergy of location and mission of the organization.
Yeah, I mean it's patently obvious when you say it, and it was very effective. Which is, it was an organization that was supporting a park. Mm. Where do you think that they had their event?
In a ballroom?
They had it specially built right there in the park. Yeah. Yeah. So they had the event in the park. They did a really nice job of incorporating the kind of park experience into the evening. Like, you walked through the park and down a path, and then as you walked along the path to the venue where the actual live program and meal happened and everything, they had a bunch of signs, talking about their mission and talking about the good things they did for the park.
That's great.
And then as the program got going, it was right as the sun was going down. So everyone was exquisitely lit. You know, it was that magic time of lighting that the film directors always are shooting for right before sundown. And and then it was a beautiful, balmy evening. And right up until the time the people were leaving by the tastefully lit paths, you know, going back to the parking, it was a real example of the actual location where you were really helped with the feeling of the night and the vibe of the night. And I think made the guests like feel more connected to the organization and their mission.
Well, and we always say a picture tells 1,000 words, but a space, right? Like walking into the actual space. Because we talked at one point about decor, about redecorating Union Square to look like a redwood forest.
Right.
But the step up from that is being in the forest.
Yeah, a picture's worth 1,000 words, and the location is 1,000 pictures. Right?
How many words would that be then? That's like 1 million words. And it's fascinating you say that because Save the Redwoods League did their event in the AIDS Memorial Redwoods Grove in Golden Gate Park pre-pandemic. Mm-hmm. And then this coming May, you haven't had your first meeting with them yet, but I know them well and have had conversations with them. And they are doing their event again in the AIDS Memorial Redwoods Grove this May, and you're going to be their auctioneer. So, dude, you're back in the park again.
You and I have both done Marin Art and Garden Center.
Oh, yeah.
They have theirs outdoors amongst the gardens and the art. Center, and it's
in the space you're raising money for.
Absolutely. It's a real opportunity for the guests to connect with the mission and connect with talk about the link between the gift they give and the change they want to see in the world.
Yeah. And when you say, what's funny, you say Marin Art and Garden Center, and I picture the space immediately. Like I know exactly where that is. Yep. And so many other events, you name the event and I pictured the hotel ballroom. Right.
You know, I did that at the Bentley or whatever.
Yeah. Oh, God, the Bentley. I haven't been to the Bentley in years. Cal Shakes.
Sure.
California Shakespeare Theater. I picture Cal Shakes at the Four Seasons because that's where Beth and Jonathan Moscone and I had our most successful Cal Shakes galas is at the Four Seasons.
Yeah. You and I, there's a bevy events that when you think of them, you think of the City Club.
Right.
Yeah. We talked about that last episode. Yeah.
Diego Rivera. There you go.
Right.
Take the elevator to the 10th floor.
That's right. Communist murals.
And capitalism. Woohoo. Woohoo. I'm trying to think if there's been any other like outdoor events where you were the organization, you were tied directly to the organization doing it in the space or the location was so obviously tied to the theme. This will make for a great edit to watch us just sit and ponder. You can play some Jeopardy music. Do 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 dun do dun dun do do do. But
let me think.
Napa Valley Growers Association has done their event numerous times on property and vineyards, which makes complete sense. They're all about farming and growing, and they do an outdoor event.
Here's one.
Okay.
It was for a theater organization.
Oh, yeah.
In Burlingame. And they did this the backwards way. They did this from the other direction, which is they got their venue, they got their location, and then they adapted their theme for the thing, right? It was in an aviation museum.
Oh, they did it at Hiller?
Yes, they did it at the Hiller Aviation Museum. And so they made their theme flight, and like we were all on a flight together, and stewardesses and your captain speaking, and right.
Oh, fun.
And so they used the location to inform how they were going to run the night and not the other way around, and it was very successful and people had a lot of fun.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah.
And theater, there you go. I've done at least 2 fundraising auctions for theater companies in the theater where they perform.
Yes. Yes, I've done that same thing, and it can be challenging because the vibe of the setup is hey, look at me, it's a performance, not my favorite, right?
Well, and so Marin Theater Company, we did it at Marin Theater Company, which is a lovely, intimate theater space. And
with
so everybody...
theater seating.
Everybody sat theater style. And,
right.
and theater style is my least favorite. I would actually rather have people standing and with cocktail, standing cocktail highboys before sitting theater style, because when you're sitting theater style, you're relegated to the person to your right and the person to your left for conversation. And I literally have watched like husbands and wives or partners who like put friends between them. So they had trying to like get their attention, be like, are we bidding on this? And the other person's like watching the auction. They're like, wait, are we supposed to be, and like just like a 6 top or a 10 top gives you the opportunity to have multiple conversations and network, to bring people literally to the table and entertain them. So nothing, nothing against the Marin Theater Company. The last time I worked with the Marin Theater Company, we did not do the auction on their stage. Berkeley Rep used to do their gala on their stage, in their theater. But what they did is they've got massive prop warehouse and massive construction crews. They would literally build over the seating
so that you had tables.
The stage went straight out to the mezzanine, and then they would put 8 and 10 tops out there. So they would like convert their theater into a gala space, which, again, you're in the theater. It's amazing. You've got the best sound and lighting you're ever going to find anywhere in the Bay Area.
That's right.
But boy, it's a lot of work.
And you hit on it right there about the theater seating. I'm with you, Greg. It's not my first choice, but it is not without its charms. And
it's fun.
The lights are usually really good because they're already hardwired in to be pointing at what it needs to. The sound is usually really good, and that it's the very best for the people sitting out there in the audience, no matter where you're sitting. And there is an unobstructed, perfect line of sight between you and every single person in that theater. You can see everyone's face. But yes, you were right onto it about people don't get to chat and party. It's like a shh, everyone quiet. Now look at me. That's not the vibe we want. Like in theater seating, people usually aren't allowed to have their drink in their hand. We want that.
Or if they have their drinks, it's hard to refill them.
You can't re-up. Right. You're in the middle of the row.
You have somebody come like with some special wand, like pouring champagne 4 people deep.
Right.
Like,
we're watching people suck an ice melt, from their seat because that's their only choice. So
I do a fundraising event for the Paramount Theater in Austin, Texas, and we do it in their theater. Yep. And it's a magnificent space. It's one of the old, like one of the few remaining classic theaters from the early 1900s. They have a Houdini hole in the roof where Harry Houdini came and performed. He was supposed to only do 2 nights. They were so sold out and had so much demand that he stayed for 2 weeks. But he's like, but I need to drill a hole in the ceiling to do this part of my act that I really want to do. And they're like, yeah, sure. And so he performed one of his feats. They, put the hole in the ceiling, hooked up a chain, and just feet. And so when I first got a tour of the Paramount, they're like, and that's our Houdini hole. And I was like, okay.
The Houdini hole is the name of my emo band, actually.
But again, it's the same thing. Like you've got, like we have over the years working with the Paramount had to come up with some good logistics for making sure people's drinks are filled and making it so that we can figure out who the bidders are. But you're right. It's fun. It's also like the great lighting, great sound, great focus, and the opportunity to do what my wife Michelle calls the Greg show. Right.
Yeah.
Because when you're on a stage like that, the expectation of it being a performance goes up a level. People are used to sitting in those seats and being entertained and having it be passive entertainment rather than interactive entertainment. And so it changes the nature of the fundraising auction. It makes it so that you have to do more of a show and less of okay, now we're just running numbers.
Right. The people, when you are doing it and people are having dinner, then the people who aren't going to bid or have no interest, they go about their business. They continue to eat and drink and that kind of thing. Whereas, like you said, the Greg show, I say the same thing. It's the Devo show where silence, everyone, time for me to entertain you. That's not exactly the vibe that we're shooting for, right? It's like the difference between having the jazz band playing during the cocktail hour, and then everyone goes and sits in the theater and watches the jazz band play.
Yeah, good
right.
point.
Like we want you to be able to pay attention if you want, but you're also doing a thing. I mean, we don't want you to talk over the auction, but
we want a sound system in place that's good enough for you to be able to have a conversation at your table, if you want to, without detracting from the people who are trying to listen to the auction.
Yeah, and if you have no chance of bidding on anything, then the auction can be boring for you know, right? So it gives you other things to do. So yeah, I think what circling it back around to location is, if you're a theater company, then the theater is a great opportunity to have the location reflect your ethos, reflect your organization. But it is not without its own whoops and jingles.
And you got to let people drink. Got to let them drink in their seats.
Make them drink.
Well, you know what's not boring? What's not boring is taking a trip to Italy, Bali, or Spain. And our partner, Sojourn Ventures, has that for you. I think we're going to pause. Nope. Black Tie Tales is brought to you by our partner Sojourn Ventures. When your auction is in need of some international travel, check out Sojourn Ventures. They curate trips to Italy, Bali, and Spain at reasonable consignment prices. They offer a whole kit and caboodle of curated packages that include round-trip airport transfers, full body massages, daily breakfasts, and all sorts of experiential things like, riding a gondola in Venice, for example. Your buyers will enjoy top-level concierge service and 2 full years to redeem their trip, all at reasonable consignment prices. Check out sojournventurestravel.com or look for the link in the bio of this podcast. Now, one of the locations, I tend to come out of the break and say now a lot. I'm gonna break that habit.
No, I like it. It keeps us centered. It keeps us in the moment.
Okay, well,
in the here and what am I looking for?
Oh, it's a good one. As far as locations go, like one of the locations that we use pretty frequently is a tent, right? Like a tent pretty much enables you to turn almost anything, anywhere into a fundraising auction space. Tents aren't inexpensive. And you also need to provide space for your caterer, right? Because they need a kitchen. If you're going to do a 250, 300 person, I mean, I would have a hard time preparing a 250 to 300 person meal in an industrial kitchen with 6 stoves. I don't know how they do it when it's out in the middle of a field.
I would have a hard time doing a meal for 4 in a field.
Exactly. I think, and the only thing I'm going to, okay, we'll roll with it. So the one thing I will say about a tent is that if you're going to do your auction in a tent, do it in one tent.
Seems like that goes without saying.
But I did an event in the Sonoma Valley in late fall, early October, supposed to be beautiful weather. But this one particular year, we got the forecast and the forecast was rain. And the auction had been slated to be outside in the middle of the vineyard where we're like the space was perfect for the mission because it was all tied together until we got the news it was going to rain. And the event planner went out and couldn't get one big tent. So they got 3 tents and cobbled them together. And that sounds like it should work, right? You would think, fine, 3 tents.
One of them didn't show up and Greg was stressing out and they told him, don't worry, you're 2 tents.
But I was also told that I should do more events like that because I'm in tents.
Yeah. The people were attentive.
Yeah. So what happened, and Ed spotted for me at this event.
Nice.
This is what, like, Ed and I, we would look back on this one and laugh. And this is one of like the more laughable ones. Because it starts raining.
Of course.
Starts pouring. And we've got 3 tents, and the tents are up against each other. And what happens when 2 valleys come together between 2 tents?
That's a water feature.
It's a water feature. And we had multiple water features in the middle of our auction.
Ooh.
We're moving tables to get them out. Because, you put the tents are, so we're in the middle of, and it's a long auction. It's like 30-something auction lots.
Oh.
we didn't feed them until the auction was over.
They're hangry.
They're hangry.
Yeah.
They did have a big charcuterie thing on their table, but 30 something auction items. It's pouring rain, water falling. So I'm looking through waterfalls at bidders. It was but again, incredibly memorable.
May you live in memorable times.
Yes, incredibly memorable, and just and lesson learned. Like, was 3/10 better than no tenths? Yes, but then plan on water, but plan on waterfalls or get to 110. And then the other location I was thinking of, like, I've done an auction on a boat. So we've got multiple ferry and I don't want to say cruise lines, but the San Francisco Bay Area, we've got a few different operating lines where you can, like, in college it used to be you take the you do the
blue and gold.
Yeah, blue and gold, red and white, and there's one other one too. I'm forgetting the name. Golden Gate Ferry. And then there's a fourth then because of whatever. But we used to do boat dances, right? Like every dorm, every unit of dorms would have a boat dance once a year when I was at Cal, and you would go and you take the boat out and be whatever. And then later on, the DJ scene kind of evolved into that too. And I can remember going on a sunset cruise with Michelle when we first met back in like 01, 02. But San Francisco Maritime Association, very thematically correct, did an event on one of the boats and on one of those large boats. And as far as like the location and the mission went, it was very well tied together. Right here we are on a boat raising money for an organization that is dedicated to the history of boats and maritime history in San Francisco and the Bay Area and beyond. It made complete sense. The challenges, though, were many and deep.
Like the ocean itself. Starting with the Wi-Fi sucked. So getting everybody on board and getting their registration taken care of. Right.
If you use something like Greater Giving, for example, and you're reliant on a Wi-Fi connection to do your registration, it threw a big monkey wrench into the registration and check-in. And suddenly it was supposed to be fast, but only one machine was really doing it. And so registration, the line is extending down the dock now instead of like processing people quickly. And, and the captain's looking at his watch going, we got to get on the road. Like we're on a timeline here, right?
And you're up at the front of the boat going, I'm king of the world.
And so the Wi-Fi was an issue. Then once we did get rolling, sound was fine. The space, boats have low decks, right? I mean, low ceilings, right?
Yeah, it seems like the acoustics would not be terrible.
The acoustics weren't terrible, but also couldn't have a really high riser or stage,
right?
Which made line of sight.
Your head's gonna bump, yeah.
Right, made line of sight challenging, and there's a bunch of pillars because like it's a boat. You can't have a big open I-beam space, and so line of sight was couldn't get elevated and couldn't see a lot of there were a lot of little challenges with that location. And then I would say the number one challenge is when the auction was over, I had to stay till the end.
Right, you didn't pack up your stuff and rowboat your ass out of there or anything like that, right?
There's no GTFO when you're on a boat.
No,
you're on the far side of Alcatraz Island.
Right,
but I mean, I think trying to think of takeaways for location, and I think pick a location with intention.
Yep.
Do not change for the sake of change. Right. Oh, well, we just want to change things up because we're tired of that last location.
Yeah. If it's good, it's good.
Right. And be sure to weigh all the costs and the benefit. Right. Sounds stupid, but like if you're moving to some place that doesn't have a kitchen, can your caterer deal with that? Right.
Yeah.
Does your caterer have the capability to come in and prepare a meal for three? How does it change the timeline of your evening? I've seen caterers that could do fine, but then all of a sudden, they do fine, but it's slower.
Yeah.
Right? Like suddenly getting 450 entrees out takes 45 minutes as opposed to 15 because they can't have all of them staged and ready to go.
Yep.
So do some evaluation about what impacts the location you're going to have. But I also think location can make your event incredibly memorable.
This really ties into a theme that we hit on in every episode in kind of a different way, which is that here's an aspect of your event. Location, where are you going to have it? That represents an opportunity, right? That represents like there's things that are going to come with it that are good, and it represents a challenge, and there's things that are going to be difficult about it. So intention is the perfect word, is let's maximize our opportunity of having something fresh, but let's also, there's a line down the middle of that paper, and here's all the opportunity on this side, and here's all the things we might want to give special attention to specifically because of the location.
Like waterfalls.
Yeah, there you go.
Like waterfalls. And I think, and we touched on this in the last podcast, but it's still fresh in my head. Like you can change 3 major things a year on your crowd, right? Location's a big one.
Yeah.
Right? Because location, and we haven't even touched on parking, right? Like what's parking lot going to be like if you change your location? You move to a boat, suddenly what time are you asking people to show up? Where are they supposed to park? How long are they going to have to get there?
They better be there because the boat's going to leave without them. Yeah, very much so.
There's no fashionably late when the boat leaves. I guess you tell everybody the boat leaves at 6:30 and it really leaves at 7. Right? I guess
that's good thinking right there.
I guess you lie.
You must have done this before. But I actually thought of one more that I'm going to throw in there.
Sure.
Is one time I did an event and it was out at someone's private house, just a beautiful place with fields and wine. And they had a barn, an actual barn, a beautiful barn. And so they set up using the barn as the backdrop, and there was entertainment. It was like a famous opera singer. And he didn't get told to do this. He didn't tell anyone he was going to do this. But at one point, he's singing his song. He has a wireless mic. And he goes into the barn and disappears. And he's still singing. And people are looking at each other. What the heck's this all about? And all of a sudden, on the second floor of the barn, the doors open of the hay doors, right. Above,
the hay loft.
And he's there like leaning out of the hay doors of the barn, like belting it out from there. And I really appreciated that he looked around at the location and said, what can I make out of this?
Right.
And just kind of went for it in the moment. And it was very successful and people oohed and awed.
Fun.
Yeah. Good stuff.
So I guess to that end, like scout the location and find out the ways that you can best maximize or utilize it to your best effect, right?
Right. They don't have hay barn doors in hotel ballrooms.
No. And if you're going to have your event in the park, then have people walk through as much of it as possible. Make sure it's well lit so they can see and there's not people getting drunk and falling down. But but again, it goes back to logistics and all of that. Thank you, listener, for joining us for this episode of Black Tie and Tales. This episode of Black Tie and Tales. We appreciate you accompanying us on this journey. As always, you can find this podcast on YouTube, Apple, Google, Spotify, or any of your other favorite podcast distribution channels. Of course, you can also find it at blacktieandtails.com. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time. Yeah.
And route.